welcome back to the 8th Concession. My name is Natalie. You can see I'm in my corner of a room in my house where I have my plants started because gardening season is on its way. Yes, even here in Zone 5B, Southern Ontario, where we still have about 20 centimeters of snow on the ground. I think it's 8 or 9 inches. It still looks like winter, but it's starting to feel like spring. And officially, it is spring. Our temperatures are going up a little bit, and all of a sudden we'll turn around and spring will be here. Now, gardening season for me is the best time of the year. I love gardening. I'm a passionate gardener. And I firmly believe in people trying to grow their own food where and when they can. It's better for your health usually than something that might have had to be transported a long way, or you're not quite sure what kind of food it is or what they've done to it. It's always tastes better than it comes from your garden, and I believe it is better. But you know, gardening can be an expensive endeavor. I mean, seeds cost nowadays $2–3 a package. You've got grow lights and heat mats and pots for starting them in. You might be investing in tools, soil. It can really add up. And not everyone is in a position to just spend scads of money on garden supplies. I get that. Here on the 8th Concession, we try to live fairly frugally, and gardening, if you let it, can really, cost a lot of money. So what can you do to keep your garden costs down, even to the point of being free? Free gardening. Now that is something I can get behind. And there are ways that you can garden for free. Now the first thing you need when you're gardening, of course, are seeds. And as I said, packages these days are $2 or even $3 a package. So where can you get free seeds? Well, one of the first places you can look for free seeds is online. Now, if you have a computer and internet at home, fine. But even if you don't, usually public libraries have computers that are connected to the internet that you can use. And you can Google things such as seed swap or free seed giveaways. There are places in different communities where people are passionate like me and want to share their seeds. Now, also check botanical gardens if you have them in your area. I know we have one near here where they also have a seed swap. And the best part is you don't have to bring seeds the first year in order to get seeds. They ask that if you take seeds, the following year you also bring some seeds back. So you can get started for free. Now they have ornamental seeds, but they also have some vegetable seeds. Another good place are gardening clubs. If you put out a call to them and say, I'd like to start gardening, does anyone have seeds to share? Gardeners are very generous, and usually we have too many seeds. We're happy to share. So if you have a gardening club, or if you have neighbors who are gardeners, you can ask them for seeds. Now, what if you're not comfortable doing that? Or what if you don't know of anywhere where they have some sort of seed swap program? Well, the answer might be as close as your kitchen. We eat seeds every day, and if you're buying food anyway, it kind of makes sense to save the seeds where you can. Now, some things like tomatoes or peppers are full of seeds. So what you do is you're going to take the tomato that you're buying anyway to eat, and instead of eating all the seeds, you're going to save a few. Now, there are specific ways you need to treat the seeds in order to save them properly, and I will link a video where I talk about seed saving. But for the most part, they're right there. And I've had pretty good luck with growing seeds from fruits and vegetables that I have bought in the store. Now, I do have to say, sometimes it doesn't work. And that's because either the produce is a type of hybrid where the seeds are sterile. Other times it's because the fruit or vegetable has actually been picked unripe so that as it's transported quite a long distance, it can ripen on the way. That happens a lot with tomatoes. And in that case, the seeds inside might not be mature enough to grow. So if you want to try using the food you're going to buy anyway, it is better to go to, say, a farmer's market where the produce is local, so it hasn't had to travel very far to get to you, and that way it was probably picked closer to being ripe than something that might be in a supermarket. So what kind of food might you find seeds in? Well, like I said, tomatoes, peppers, pumpkin, winter squash, those are all good candidates. Some things you won't be able to find free seeds in, even though they have seeds inside. And again, just like tomatoes that have to be shipped, it's because they've been picked before the seeds are mature. And that's because they're picked early, because that's when they're best to eat. And that includes things like zucchini, cucumbers, eggplant, that sort of thing. So it's not perfect, but you can find some seeds in the food you eat. So another source of free garden plants from your kitchen can be things like root crops, and what those are, root vegetables. And those are things like carrots, beets, turnip, parsnip, anything where you eat the root. Now, I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube where they show you that if you cut the top off and put it in water, you can grow a new carrot. Well, I'm sorry, you can't. The carrot itself is a taproot. It is a big root of the plant. And if you do that, you will not be growing a new carrot. But it is still a valuable trick. I was making a dish with carrots the other day, and I mean, we cut the tops off and throw them away. And just like in those videos, I did the same thing. I put it in a cup of water. I use toothpicks so the whole thing isn't down. You don't want it to rot. Let's see if I can focus. Just leave it in some water and you can see it's starting to grow. As I said, it's not going to grow a new carrot, but it is going to grow a carrot plant. It is going to form new sort of fibrous roots. And the thing about this is, once it has a good root system and it's really growing, you can plant it in your garden. And while you won't get a carrot, you will get carrot seeds for next year. So you're not going to get anything out of it this year. With a bit of patience though, let it grow, let it flower, let it set seeds, let it completely start to dry, and then harvest free carrot seeds from something that you would have thrown away. That can work for parsnips, for beets, for turnip. So that's a great way to get free seeds for next year from things that you use anyway. There are other types of things food that we eat where you can regrow more plants. And one of those is potatoes. Now, potatoes are not like carrots. They're not a taproot, but they do form on the roots. And you can see from my potato here, hope it'll focus. There we go. You can see that the dents on the potato, called the eyes, are starting to sprout. Now, if you plant that, you will get a new potato plant, and as that potato plant grows and matures, it'll send out more roots, it'll create more tubers, you will get more potatoes. But perhaps you don't want to use up all your good potatoes that you bought to eat and you need to eat. Well, what I tried was, when I was making potatoes the other day, when I was peeling them, I took a little more potato than perhaps I would have just doing a regular peel, but I didn't take the whole potato. I took a little bit of extra and I planted it in a pot. And this is what's happened. You can see that I just put it in this leftover pot in a bit of dirt, and it is growing. I will plant it out in the garden. It will grow into a full-grown potato plant with potatoes. I didn't even give up a whole potato for this. I just gave up a bit of an extra piece in case, when you peel it a little too far. Free potato plants. And you still get to eat the potato. Onions are another one. Now, these are onions that I've grown, but they're just like onions you get in the store. You can see this is where the roots used to be. I use my onions. I need to use my onions. But what I did was, again, I cut off a little bit more than I would have, say, normally, but I would cut it off maybe about here. And I also put that in a jar of water with the toothpicks to keep the top of it out so it didn't rot, but allow the roots to grow. And boy, did they grow. Once the roots were well established, I planted it in this little pot here, and you can see my onion is starting to grow. Now, the thing about onions, I did see this really interesting video, because in my mind, this is going to grow and grow like green stalks, and I would say you could harvest them like you would green onions and use it in salads or in cooking, but that you wouldn't get a new bulb out of it. However, I do want to try and experiment with this year, and I will show you how it goes, because I did watch a video of someone who took this, and as you can see, there are several, let me just see if I can, there are several little sprouts coming up from this one onion. And what this man did is, when they got a bit bigger, he actually pulled it out of the ground, separated each one of those, and planted them separately, and they did grow into another onion bulb. So I want to try that to see if that's the case. But if not, at least you can get some free green onions to use in your cooking from just what you would cut off and throw away anyway. Another throwaway that could bring you free food is if you buy a stalk of celery. I don't have one on hand here to show you, but if you get the full stalk and you cut it off to use the stems, you can also do the same thing. Root it in a glass of water held up by some sort of bamboo skewers or toothpicks. Well, probably bamboo skewers, because it'll be a bit heavier, and allow it to regrow. Now, the thing about celery is you're not looking for a new root. What you're looking for are new stalks, because that's what we eat on celery, are the stalks, and they will regrow, and you will get some free celery stalks. Beans are something else that you can buy and plant. I've heard of people having good success with dried beans or dried peas coming from the store. So you buy a bag to have rice and beans or something, and you put aside 5 or 10 of those beans or peas, and you plant them. You will likely have very good success in growing them and having your own beans or peas. Now, you can't use the split peas because you need the whole seed for it to grow. So if they're split, they're no good for the garden, but you can definitely use those. So there you go. Now you have some free seeds and or plants to put in your garden to grow your own food. You've either reached out to groups or seed swaps or other gardeners who are willing to share, or you found some yourself from things that you have around the house, things you typically eat, things you typically throw away, and you are ready to plant. What do you need next? Well, you need something to plant them in. If you want to start things from seed, like say tomatoes or peppers, you're going to need something to grow them in. Now, even the, peat pots and peat pellets in the store, everything's gone up so much in price. But you can find free things around the house to use where you don't have to spend more money. And 2 of my favorites, if you watch my hack video about the types of recycled products that I like to use and things I don't, you'll get more information. But for now, I'll show you 2 of my favorites. And one is pots made from rolled newspaper, and the other is eggshells, which is really good for starting tomatoes because they need the calcium in the eggshells. Both of how to do these are in the hack video, which I will link below. But you don't need to go out and buy all kinds of pots. Almost everyone has access to newspaper, things, the flyers come in the mail, and all you need then is a bottle or jar. You're probably eating eggs anyway, so just be careful how you crack them open, and you have free pots to start your seeds in. What about the garden though? What if you don't live in a spot like I do? Luckily enough, I have lots of land to put in a big garden. What if you don't have that? Well, if you do have a backyard, you can probably find a corner of the yard that you can turn into a vegetable garden. And you don't have to have a huge garden to get the benefits of growing your own food. You can have just a corner of the garden. You can also plant your vegetables in between your flowers in an ornamental garden. I mean, they're plants, they have pretty leaves, quite often they have nice flowers. They don't look terrible in your garden. So you could just stick them in. But what if you don't even have that? What if you don't have a backyard that has any sort of usable space? Well, then you can plant things in pots. A lot of vegetables will do well in containers. Smaller tomato varieties can go in small pots. So reuse the things you have around the house. Think of the things that you recycle every day. Your juice containers, cut the tops off them. Any sort of container, the bigger, the better. Sometimes you can find people who are, throwing away one of those plastic bins because they've cracked. Well, that's perfect for gardening because you want a little bit of drainage. So you can recycle that. You can put it on a balcony. Sometimes I've seen people regrowing things like potatoes almost in heavy duty sacks. And so look around to see what you could use as a container for free on your balcony or in a backyard that is mostly paved over. Now you're going to need some soil to go in those containers. Where are you going to get free soil? Well, I tried to Google because in our area, they do have free compost giveaways at our landfills, at our waste management sites for the people who live in the area. And I tried to Google to see if that was just something here in Ontario, whether it was in many regions, and it is pretty widespread. So first look to see if there are free compost giveaways from your landfill in your local area. If not, you're going to have to make your own compost, which is the best kind of garden soil anyway. So start collecting your scraps in your buckets, add a bit of dirt from somewhere where you can find it, turn it into compost gold. There are lots of videos to learn how to properly do the brown and green ingredients to make a good compost, but that is another way where you can at least get some good healthy soil to add to your pots. If you have access to maybe some countryside near you, or even sometimes there are riding stables in town, hit them up for some free manure. Let it cool a bit. You can't use the manure right away, but certainly you can add to your soil, make your soil better, or even create your own compost to get some free soil. If water is an issue where you live, the best way to get free water for your garden is, of course, to collect rainwater. Now, we've been having lots of areas with droughts recently, so collecting rainwater is a good idea anyway. See what you can rig up depending on where you live, what your house looks like. See if you can collect that water in something to use in your plants so you're not even having to pay, municipal water charges to water your garden. What about grow lights and heat mats? Well, they aren't absolutely necessary. They make it easier. You sometimes get a better germination rate, but that doesn't mean you can't garden without them. Find a sunny window where you can place your seed starts if you're starting them from seed, so they get as much light as they can. They might get a bit leggy, what they call leggy, meaning they're stretching up to reach the sun, but they'll still grow into a good plant once you put them in the sun in your garden or in pots on your balcony afterwards. Heat mats, they're lovely, but if you don't have one, you can start your seeds by putting them in a warm spot in your house on top of a radiator vent for your furnace, or on top of the fridge is often a good warm spot. So while they do make seed starting more enjoyable and quicker, they're not absolutely necessary. You can also use just plain shop lights for your plants. You don't have to buy the really expensive grow lights. As long as they're not LEDs, I believe, they should work to give your plants the light just to get them started. There you go. You're all set to get started gardening. Gardening for free if you need to, or even if you just want to. There's nothing better than getting free food. So get out there and get some plants in the ground. Bye for now.